Mike Fish, Director at Big Data for Analytics, Big Data for Analytics is a big data management consultancy, and we work with non-technical functional managers and senior leaders in retail, e-commerce, supply chain and financial services, helping them identify how adopting analytics can drive up business profitability and competitiveness by optimizing key business parameters such as pricing, costs or time. So I'll hand over to Jackie Down of Big Data for Analytics, who's going to talk about demystification of business analytics.
Okay, good morning and thank you very much, Mike, and thank you to all of you attending this morning's webinar. Well, firstly, we are in a constantly changing business environment. So how deeply do these changes actually impact your organisation? We all know about increasing globalisation, pressure on margins. There's always been pressure on margins, and I think there'll always continue to be. But regulations, I'm afraid they're here to stay. And we now know how much data has to be kept in this world, just in case we might need to access that information. There's a lot of volatility. We've all seen what's happened in the markets in terms of commodity prices and stocks. And also, there's a lot of new competition, new entrants coming from overseas, and also people buying other companies up and changing their direction. And what that means is there's been an increased focus on risk, of which organisations look to the finance department to actually help address some of these issues. So today I'm sure many of you are already using some form of an analytics, but with all the data that's available, you've got to take control, and I'm sure your current analytics solution and the processes you have today can't handle the volume of data that's now available, the velocity, the speed that data is coming in, and the different variety of data. It's now not just the old Excel spreadsheet, it's many other areas. So you need finance to take control of this fast-growing volume of the many types of data. And worldwide digital content has actually been doubling, and it's said that in the last 2 years that 80% of the world's data has actually been created. That's a huge amount of data. And now today, organisations are having to deal with a variety of enterprise data, and most of this data is what we term unstructured, so it's not in a nice, neat format. So, you're getting a lot of data from your ERP solutions, you're getting lots of data now coming in from the mobile, from your web, etc. And there's lots of transactions happening. So you've probably heard some of these terms, and the term big data. Well, big data has been around for a long time, but really what big data is, it's all around the velocity of the data, so how quickly it's coming in, but more importantly, it's more the variety of the data, and obviously volume continues to increase. So if we have a look now of the top priorities for the CFO finance executives, most organisations from a finance perspective want closer collaboration with the business units. And over the next couple of years, the priorities for finance, well, it's always about controlling costs and obviously improving profitability. Also, one of the things from a recent survey is that a lot of finance people believe they spend too much time on the more repetitive tasks, the traditional reporting, and that they're saying something like 76% of their time is being spent on traditional reporting, whereas they would like to actually increase that so they can do much more value-added business functions for the business. So CFOs are actually struggling with the inability to access detailed information across all business units. And a lot of data is actually kept in what we call silos. So there's data spread across different parts of the business. So sometimes you don't have that complete picture. And you're spending quite a lot of time doing time-consuming financial analysis and reporting. Again, go back to my earlier comment, spending too much time doing the old traditional rather than spending more time on high-value analytics. And quite often, financial decisions are based on incomplete, inaccurate, and often outdated information. Data is changing rapidly. We talked about the velocity, so data is changing very, very quickly. So it could, potentially, you could miss out on some of your financial objectives and not be able to manage risk and compliance in a timely manner. And if we look at the evolving role of the finance with all this advent of new data, well, we know that producing reports, and that's still very important, and there'll still be a place to do that, and obviously the financial governance. Cost cutting as well. Finance has been known for looking at how you cut costs, and obviously things like managing plans and distributing information, be it via dashboards or standard reports. But really, those high-value activities all around things like predictive planning now. So taking that information, knowing that maybe if your product sales are down, you can do some analysis and do prediction to actually take some action now and then. Also doing things like cost analysis. If you're having to give discounts on particular products, being able to look at how that impacts the bottom line. And obviously more and more, and finance has always been a trusted advisor, but in this new advent of this evolving role, becoming much more the strategic advisor to the business, of having a whole-round view of the business. And obviously, the business will set goals, and part of finance responsibility will redefine those growth strategies and drive new innovation. So the decision-making revolution, it's here now, and it's now your opportunity as finance people to really transform the business. By enabling real-time decisions, now you'll be able to, in real time, so I've got the term now, always on, the connected CFO. By having access to the data of looking at dashboards, you can actually take some real-time action when you see perhaps something in your dashboard actually going the wrong way. Mobile enterprise information from an operational level of having that data. And one of the key evolving roles for the finance department is to work much more in collaboration with the business. So making sure the rest of the business has the right information at the right time on that trusted data. By actually being able to look at things like changes in KPIs in real time, you can actually do reforecasting on the fly, which is something that is very, very useful, especially when you have a supply chain. So that's one really important. Delivering faster information and more detailed analysis of that data that you now have access to, and providing that information to the business users, going back to that collaborative approach. So now moving on to big data, and I touched around big data being the amount of data, the different types of data, and the speed of the data and the volume. Well, big data, there's been a lot of hype in the press. I'm sure a number of you have heard a lot with what's going on. But what is the payback? Well, it's been proved, and it's not just us saying that, but looking at MIT and McKinsey doing analysis, that companies implementing big data solutions show a 6 to 9% performance improvement over the industry average shown by your industry peers, an improvement of 15 to 20% in marketing return on investment. So that's actually quite a compelling reason of why you should be looking at using all different data types. It's also been said that $10 to $15 trillion in economic benefit is actually going to be. And obviously we all know that where venture capitalists goes, and they've put a huge investment in, that that's where they go, where they see growing, and we've seen huge investments into big technology companies over the last couple of years. So I'll just take a couple of user cases by industry. There's plenty more. I'll just touch on a couple. Financial services, things like fraud detection. Doing fraud detection after something's happened is no good. You need to do it in real time and actually take action immediately. Retail, many of us are very familiar with that, and I'll show a couple of examples a bit later on in analytics, but things like doing customer behaviour modelling, presenting to us as consumers the right offer at the right time, and more importantly, at the right place. Things like healthcare, which will affect us all, things like remote patient monitoring, tomorrow we won't have to go into the hospitals, we'll be able to sit at home, record all their data, and then just upload the information via the internet to the consultant to take action. So there's lots and lots of different user cases by industry. Moving on now to traditional reporting and analysis. So in the past, doing things from your Excel spreadsheet, it's done a pretty good job. I'm sure some of you are actually using analytics packages to actually look at what the history is, what's happened. And the present as well, I'm sure many of you are doing analysis on present data, but it's typically not in real time. But where some of the high growth is going to be the future. And typically organisations are not addressing that, of looking what could be. And if we look at business intelligence and big data, business intelligence, it's all about the questions you're asking. And big data is all around data discovery. It's finding out things that you didn't know in the data. And also it's identifying questions you're actually not asking of the business. But more importantly, when you've got information, you must take action on that information to gain the benefit. So from a business and analytics point of view, it's about having the right information at the right time and in the right format, because at the end of the day we want to ensure that that information is there so you can make better decisions and make them even faster, to make them much more relevant to today's environment. Looking at the 4 styles of analysis, so if we look from left to right, we have line managers right up to executives. Line managers of business units typically want to look at how are things doing. They want immediate visual insight onto business performance. How are my products doing? What's happening with that blip? And that's straight reporting. But quite often they then want to get below that data. So they use a technique called drill down. So it's literally what it means. It's drilling down the next level down to that information. If we look at business analysts and financial analysts, it's also, well, why is this happening? So what's trending? And they want to do things like scenario modelling. What if I do this? What if I reduce the price by 10%? What impact will that have on my bottom line? And then quite often what people want to do at that level is they want to slice data and then dice it even further. And it's literally termed slicing the data in a particular way and then chopping it up in little bits to get more information. Then moving on to things like business management and executives. They want to now start looking at what should they be doing in the future. They want to see the insight so they can actually allocate the right resources. That's in terms of people. It's also in terms of probably money as well. And so that is what will be. And so if we look at business analytics in context, it's all around the analysis and reporting. So it's the what happened, the trusty Excel spreadsheet. And then things like what's happening, that's where your scorecards come into play. And then analysing of, what's actually happened. And then where you're going to get the biggest benefit is what will happen. So being able to forecast accurately, introducing a new product and then forecasting how that product's going to take. That then, obviously does have some impact on your supply chain. So if we look at the steps in analytics for business insight, and these are just 3 examples of descriptive analytics, so what has happened. People like Netflix are actually identifying correlations between different movies rented to enable them to make better recommendations for you. ING Bank are using what are predictive analytics, what will happen next, i.e. they're actually personalising campaign offers. Go back to my earlier comment, having the right offer at the right time. And then prescriptive analytics, people like Amazon are using that. And they're doing things like what should the optional response be to the predictors. So things like using price optimization based on demand to increase future online revenues. And if we look from a business analytics point of view, we've got everything there from standard reports, what's happened. And this really is where, if you go up to the right-hand side of your screen, that's the proactive decision making. So let's act upon it. So that's where you start looking of, I've got this information, now let's look on it and see into the future. And so the future as a question, well, this is a comment by Chris Gentle, who's a partner and head of research at Deloitte and a member of ACCA's Accounting Futures Academy. So what he's saying is accountants and financial professionals must be open to changes created by big data and and cloud, and face up to the demands of things like cybercrime, digital service delivery, and artificial intelligence. And I think one thing is for sure, the future will not be like the past, and we will need to adapt. I'd like to hand over to Andrew Mosley, a Director for Meta Praxis, who's actually going to talk about revealing what your data has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.